Hi, Chiki. I hope you're online.
I am.
Fantastic.
Hold on.
Uh,
Am I here? I am here. Hold on.
well, we're waiting for. Yes, you are. We can see you now. So this is fantastic. I think we're all sort of adjusting to this new normal of making the most of the tech that we truly depend on these days to connect and obviously interact. So thank you for taking the time to do this, and hello everyone, and also thank you to you all for taking the time to sort of log in and listen in. So Chiki, how are you doing? How are you coping with this new normal before we actually jump into the main theme? I'd love to know if you're staying safe and healthy and everyone's doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this to, in fact, Joshua, who is, the my person I did the early initiation meditation of
Mm-hmm.
Heartfulness with Joshua Pollack, who wrote the book, The Heartfulness Way. And I said to him, we were just touching base yesterday, and I said, it's both good and hard. It's hard because it's hard. It's hard because you wake up in the morning and you're making breakfast for your children, and then you're cleaning up, and then you're going straight to work and they're pulling at your dress, and you're trying not to lose your temper, but you have a whole lot of work to do. It's hard. But it's good because, at least for me, because I'm a working mother, I'm seeing so much more of my children. And, I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And especially my 1-year-old, I went back to work within less than 2 months of having both of them. So I didn't see it. By choice, and I don't. It wasn't something very melodramatic. I wasn't particularly emotional about it, but it meant that I don't see him so much.
Sure.
And now there are these moments like where I'll sit. Today, before I came onto this event, I thought, oh, I better just comb my hair and put a little bit of makeup to look a little bit respectable. And he's sitting in the bathroom with me as I'm doing whatever I do, and he's watching me. And I just thought, I haven't had this moment with him. This very nothing very amazing, just a small, simple human event. And then suddenly he opens my makeup cupboard, and I'm like, oops, now we have trouble. This is going to happen now forever. So I keep ransacking my cupboards. So, it's good. It's made us, one thing this has done is that it's made you shed all the extraneous things, right? In a way. I mean, I'm not saying friendships aren't extraneous, but I'm home, I'm with the kids, I'm working. I managed to do a workout every day with some
Yeah.
other friends. So I feel I feel quite fit. It's okay. It's okay. It's not, we are the lucky ones. We are
True.
not laborers who have no home and who are stuck and who can't go home, and they don't not getting money and they can't pay their rent. I mean, it has been affected in India in all kinds of ways, and we are the lucky ones in our homes, and
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean,
so
and
I
I
feel
think
more lucky than I feel unlucky. Let's put it that way. And I think that none of us should be whining. We're the lucky people.
true. I mean, absolutely. And I think, to me as well, I'm glad you bring the fact up is that we're getting a chance to really pause and take stock, and also, just be more focused introvertly, because we're getting that time to spend with friends and family, and also take a break from our regular, extremely hectic routines. I think we're all making adjustments in our own way. And I think for me, it's been interesting as well, as you were just saying, which is obviously noticing the very important moments, but at the same time, not having lines between professional and personal. It's pretty much, all very intertwined. And how do you make time for yourself? And, I'm glad you bring that up, because, it's been tough on me to just create a routine and say, look, I just need to go out and meditate at this point, or I just need to go out and eat lunch or work out, and also look after myself and spend time with friends and family. Because, there is no commute and there's none of that, which I think we take time to sort of wind down even before we come home. It's all just really mixed up. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you probably don't require any sort of introduction, but I think it's worth talking about, your achievements, specifically looking at the theme we're going to be covering. And, so of course, you're a co-founder of Juggernaut, a new age publishing house in India, that brought together sort of the real world publishing and reading books online, which is where we mostly live our lives these days. And you've been, like you say, I think you call yourself, publishing is pretty much what you've been most passionate about through your life. And at Penguin, you were instrumental in sort of publishing The Accidental Prime Minister, which I think was pivotal in shaping the political landscape. And I feel like most people being at that point and achieving that success would have stopped and sort of just slumbered into their comfort zone. But I think that really sort of accelerated and made you think, what more can you do and how can you solve this very interesting problem of having many more readers in India and making sure that you bring those two worlds together, because most of the millennials are living their lives online. And how can you really bring that? And I think, kudos to you for taking that leap, because at that point, nobody really saw that. And so, I just wanted to sort of give that short introduction. And I think it's only apt that we have someone like you on day one to open this, because in my mind, you really represent the youth and what opportunities that brings, because you had the vision to really adapt and be flexible and look out in the future and say, look, this is what's going to be, what's going to change in the publishing world. So, I think, for me, it's really great that we're getting this chance to talk to you. And, you've really transformed the way people read books and experience storytelling. And you've also given a very equal platform to established writers. And also, I heard, you also have a whole amateur writing section where you have folks who just want to do it and get in touch with their creative self and take time, even in their very, very busy, lives, to just cut away and still follow their hobbies. So fantastic. And I do follow your app very closely. So I enjoy reading all the stuff that comes out. So, I wanted to start off by saying, what are the 2 or 3 really defining moments when you look back, right? I think, all of us it's very easy to, also do some analysis retrospectively. So I really like you to share with our young audience about what are those 2, 3 moments which really were pivotal and helped you be where you are and achieve the success.
So, and I really believe in them. So I think, I've often thought, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and I would say, I tend to have, I'm not being modest here, but I'm a very flawed person. I'm often very difficult to work with. I can be exasperating. I have one thing that has held me steady really for most of my life, which is that in the key moments, I made the right calls. And I'd start with one call that I didn't make, but my dad made, but it changed my life. And it was that he forced me to go to Oxford University. My father he's a Bengali, he's an Anglophile. When I was 18 or 19, I didn't have that confidence, frankly, to apply to very fancy universities. And so I got very defensive, and I used to tell my parents, why do people want to go to good university, fancy name? I can go anywhere, it doesn't matter, one should be democratic. But really what I was doing was hiding my own fear. And my father I think he would have loved to have gone to Oxford if he had had the opportunity. So for him, it's, he's always been he hasn't pushed me, but in that moment, he really pushed me. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think Oxford changed me is that not because I think that, of course I loved it and I got a great education, but I believe that you can get really anywhere. But for an Indian girl, I had 10 years working in Britain in an industry that's fairly closed. 10 years, it was always relatively elitist. It's now every year, every moment it becomes more and more open. So it was more open in my time than it was 10 years before, but it was still relatively close. So having that degree from this branded university, etc., really helped this Indian girl to make a little bit, open her door in London, her door into British publishing. So I think that was the right call for my dad. And once I joined my first job, which was a publishing company called Bloomsbury Books, and you guys Bloomsbury is a famous name. Right. It stands for, it's a Bloomsbury group, which are famous writers, but actually Bloomsbury Publishing is an independent press that started in the 80s. And when I joined it in 1999, it was really almost going bust. It was a small company. It just wasn't making enough money. And then something happened. which is that they published a bunch of books that no one else wanted, and so they took it on, and those books were called Harry Potter. And as you can imagine, it changed everything about this company. I was sort of bang in the middle of it. I saw this company move from being this small artsy company into, it remained a small artsy company, but with a lot of money. And I worked there for 7 years. And then so my first turning point was, I think, like listening to my conservative father, who pushed me into making a conservative decision that I, at the time, didn't want to, but it was actually the best thing I did. The second one was that, sort of when I was 27, I began to feel quite constricted in London and Bloomsbury, feeling a little bit stuck. I think a lot of people have that feeling in their late 20s, sort of feeling like nothing's moving. Everything's sort of going round and round and the same thing's happening. And I was single. It didn't look like I was going to get married at the time. My sister, my first cousins had all got married. So there were these big turning points around me. And I was this sort of single girl where the career was fine. I was in a nice company, but it didn't seem to be really moving. And at that point, I got this offer to be editor-in-chief of Random House in India. It had just been set up. Random House at the time was the world's leading publisher, and it never had its own outpost in India. And I knew the decision would change my life. I took it. I closed my eyes. I jumped. The first year I moved to India was the hardest year of my life. I was 28. I hadn't had a working life in India, right? I'd gone to university abroad and then worked abroad. So, I'd returned to India after, I used to come, of course, I'm Indian and I used to come back on holidays, but I never had my own flat and pay the electricity bill and managed a maid and, figure how to bring lunch to work. I didn't have, and I also, more importantly, I didn't have a ton of friends. Most of my friends weren't here. I had no friends in Delhi, and I didn't have a professional network at all in Delhi. I knew no one. I knew no one in my world. And I don't even mean important people. I just didn't even know who the book designers were or the copy editors were, or, just people who, the service providers that I would need. So I cried every day for a year.
Wow.
Every day something would happen that would make me cry, because I found, and it could be something silly, like, I remember one day, like 5 light bulbs went off. This is a very Indian thing, right? Your light bulbs just go fuse. Yeah. Now, if you live in London, your light bulbs don't fuse, right? So It's not a big deal, but I still remember thinking, oh, like, gosh, and I remember just sort of sitting there and crying, just feeling helpless. But it was also sort of, it was like training for a marathon. It created muscles in my heart and my head that have stayed with me,
Yeah,
I was very happy in Random House. And then 5 years later, I got a call from the CEO of Penguin India, and they said they wanted me to be publisher, and I immediately said yes. So I knew that this would be a turning point in my career, and because Penguin at the time was the largest publishing house, and I knew this jump. So I think all I mean to say is that every time there's been a moment where I've looked at it and I thought, this is an opportunity to grow. Like, this is me expanding the barriers of my life. I've not hesitated. I've taken it. And even though I found the jump I rarely ever found the jump easy or effortless. I found them always difficult, always emotionally challenging, always like whatever. It's not, I don't feel like I'm like Miss Superwoman, but I felt I must do it. I must do it. That is my potential, and I must meet my potential. So I took that, and then the next jump came with Juggernaut, when I thought, you know what? I have to try and answer this question, which is that, how do I get more Indians reading? And I know that Indians, everywhere I go, whether I'm in, in a hotel or in a restaurant or in the airport or even at home with my husband, we are on the phone. We're on the phone the whole time. And if I can't find a way for books to live on the phone in some seamless fashion, and find a new way of talking about books, then I will. And I'm not, I don't think Juggernaut succeeded yet. I think we're doing well, but we've not done, I don't think we've gone all the way. And so I feel like this project is still unfinished, but the question is worth asking, right? And So I think, so that's it. I mean, that's what I would say. I would say that for me, I mean, the only other change in my life was I married late. I met my husband when I think I was about 35, 36, but I knew very fast that I was going to marry him. And
Fantastic.
I jumped with that too. So I knew this is a good man, and this man keeps, and I'm going to jump. And I did it. And, I haven't regretted it. He's a wonderful, I love being married to him. I love having his children. He's a gem.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, so that's what I would say. And everyone knows their turning points. They know. But so the only thing I would just say is, I mean, that when that moment crossroad comes, if you can have the courage, do it. Everyone has their own compulsions and stuff. But the one thing I would say, which is conservative, is that I'm glad that that first turning point, which is the conservative turning point, my father pushing me towards a fancy school, overriding my nervousness, my lack of confidence, and my inhibitions. And I had a lot of those. I was not a naturally extremely confident person, or anything. I was okay. I was just a very normal. I was a good student. I wasn't a brilliant student. I was not amazing.
Right.
So for me, like, I just didn't think I was amazing enough for Oxford. And the fact is that it did change. And I think that's the only thing I don't know what I would do with my kids and whether I'd make that push, but I do know, at least for me, it did change my life. And so,
no, I'm glad, and I think all that you have shared very honestly has been extremely insightful, and I think I'm sure for me there's a lot that I can take away from what you just said, and I feel like success is incremental, as you said. It's building blocks every day and identifying that opportunity and being able to course correct or be self-aware that this is really going to be the moment and this is the opportunity I need to jump at, which is going to really change the way I'm going to live life, from here on. And I think the ones that you just shared are things that you need courage for, and therefore, kudos to you for doing that and pushing yourself and making sure that you don't, go into that comfort zone. Of course, I feel like, I spoke to a few of your peers and colleagues, of course, as part of my research. And the one thing that really stood out, when I spoke to a bunch of them was how you have positively impacted their lives. And for me, I think that was a very pertinent takeaway, because I feel like the way we understand success these days is that it's a process and a journey of exclusion. And I would really love to hear what have you done, and what are the sort of values that you have followed to make it far more inclusive. Because like you said, in your personal journey, you've made sure that you expand as an individual. You constantly want to learn, you're curious, you ask the right questions, and that's very also important in the context of the Heartfulness way, where we say that you need to aspire to inspire, and which I think is seems like it's also deep rooted in the values that I follow, and how I like to interact and engage with folks, and what I also understood is something that you do very naturally. And the second thing I heard from them was that you have this incredible knack of stitching stories and seeing an opportunity where most others can't. And I think to just talk about that is the book that you wrote, the book that you published with Rajat Gupta, right? I think you were one of the early ones to go out, talk to him, see that there is going to be a future in this book, and that his story is worth telling to the world, because we were only hearing one side. So can you tell us a little bit more about both these things and articulate that how can we tune ourselves and make it a habit to be very self-aware about these things? And also, do you think it's something that you can train yourself, or either you have it or you don't? So I'd love to know a little bit.
I'm so flattered that you said the first thing, which is that I actually don't think of myself as and I'm being honest here. I don't think I'm an especially good boss or a especially good colleague. Because I think I push myself so much that I do that with my colleagues, and sometimes they can't take it. They find it hard. I'm a hard boss. I expect a lot, and I'm obsessive. And I feel like, in fact, that's one of my weaknesses. I mean, I think I make things. What I think is, if you work with me, you'll be bored, because I'm always just like this, right? But I also think that am I like the most empathetic, like maternal, like it's okay, darling. I am just not that person. So I think I don't know whether I have a positive impact on people. I don't think that's one of my strengths. I mean, I don't think I don't think I'm not nasty or vicious, but I am impatient, and I am, and I say things, and I have high expectations. I'm not sure I praise people enough. I always worry about that. I'm not sure that I express to my colleagues all the good things that they have. I think I sometimes do it. I don't think I do enough of it. So I think that, at least for me, in the way when I think of all the things and by the way, that goes towards, I think, even, I'm not sure I have a twin sister I'm very close to, and she would say that, I mean, I think if she heard me say it, I think she would also agree. I don't think, she's a little bit more fragile than I am, and I don't think she thinks that I am nurturing enough of her, while we're very close and we love each other, so we can have this conversation where she'll tell me this and I'll hear it. And so I'm not sure that's my strength. I do think I'm good at picking stories. That is a strength. That I think that comes from my family. See, I come from a newspaper family. And my family.
You're being really modest. So just like come out with the honest stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not. I mean, I kind of feel like it's worth being immodest about the things that you really have something going for, and then I think you should. I don't know. I don't want to say, because I just do. I'm so aware of my fault. Anyway, but. I came from a newspaper family. So my great-grandfather started a newspaper, which my grandfather ran, which my father runs. I mean, he stepped away now, but which he ran for many years. And so the journalism is about finding stories, right? It's about having that thing. This is a story. This is a story. So I have that feeling. It's a very strong, and I think it's a natural instinct for me that has come because, when I was a kid, my sister and I would often sit in the living room, and my dad would be on opposite us, and he would have work chats with his team. And so we've just imbibed these stories. So not stories, but this way of thinking. So Rajat Gupta was, everyone wanted Rajat Gupta. But what I would say is, I knew it was the book to have, and I thought, how do I get it? And I remember seeing a New York Times piece. I think this was a piece they did about him doing solitary in prison. And, so there are these days I'll read something and I'll go, I have to have this book. I have to have this book. What do I do? And I remember that I knew a gentleman who was close to him, who had been at McKinsey and who had worked with him and was no longer at McKinsey. And I called him and I said, look, how do I make this book happen? And he said, listen, you should go meet him in jail and I'll help you. I'll send you this form, you fill out this form, you mail it, and I'll tell him you're coming. And so I wrote this letter to Rajat Gupta. Now it happens that I used a family connection because Rajat Gupta, although he's not known to my family as such, his father used to work for the Bengali newspaper that my grandpa ran. So there was so I used that and I said, I'm X's granddaughter and I would like to come and see you in prison. May I come? And this go-between said it was fine. So I filled out that form and I went. So, what I tend to do is I get obsessed by something and then I use everything I've got, every contact I have, every hustling bone I have to satisfy the itch. And I'm a big hustler. I totally am pushy. I use every contact I can. I'm constantly asking people to introduce me to other people. I mean, I hope I don't drive them too crazy.
Clearly you aren't, because that's not the feedback that I got. So you're clearly doing a good job.
So I do. I mean, I love it. I mean, that part is what it's one of the things I love about it. So I would say the being good to my colleagues, I don't know whether that's my special strength. But I do get obsessed about stories and finding the right stories and doing, the right books.
Sure. I mean, I think, I feel, just from what you said is, impatience is certainly a quality that pushes all of us to achieve that success, right? I mean, and also this bias to action that you have, which is once you set your mind that you want to get this, like you spoke about, the Rajat Gupta episode, you just make sure that you just find ways to get that. And I think that's really focused, right? And I feel, that's important even as we start to think through even the young, the youth, or even for my own self, as I think about what I'd like to do and how I'd like to live my life. I think that's a very important aspect, that once you set your mind to something, it's very important that you go out and do it all the way to the end, right? You just don't stop midway because you hit the first hurdle and you just sort of put your hands up and say, look, I tried, but it didn't really work. That's really the way.
Totally. And it means that things sometimes pause, right? Like this Rajat Gupta thing, I'd like thought about, and then, then I paused. It had like, there were other things on my plate, and for 3 or 4 months I had, and then suddenly that story revved me up again. And then, I made that. And it is funny. It is about like, the solutions are there. It's just that I don't always find that I see it immediately, right?
Of course.
But then I find often two things that help me. I find like, I don't do it anymore, but I used to go running, and I used to find the running sort of sometimes freaked me out. It made, like, after having that run, I felt a little bit like I didn't always have the answer, but I felt I could. And I'm a great believer in the power of sleep, I always wake up feeling more or less optimistic. I don't wake up, I'm an optimistic person. So, if there's and so I think one of my big learnings over the years has been, before, if something bad happened, I want to respond to it. Like, let's say I got a difficult email, or I want to instantly respond.
Yeah.
And go, and, send back. And now I've learned, and by the way, I still do that. So it's not like I'm a perfect person, but I think I have learned to say, okay, like, come back to tomorrow, and it'll go different tomorrow. But that's definitely an age thing. Could not do that in my 20s. I think I spent all my 20s and early 30s writing really inappropriate emails, or making calls across personal and professional that I shouldn't have. And if I just stayed, if I just kept my mouth shut for that moment, those few hours, so that the next day I would have dealt with it better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you say that, because, I've had a lot of conversations with Daji, who's the, global trainer, and he always, of Heartfulness, and he always tells me, he said to me, patience is character. And it took me a long time to unravel this very
phrase. I remember that.
Yeah. And, it was just exactly what you said, which is when you get hit with something and your instinct is to go in there and just respond and react. But instead, if you pause, you're actually not reacting, but you're constructively acting. And I think that just changes everything, right? And that's changed a lot for me. And especially when you talk about empathy, especially with colleagues and coworkers, I could sort of identify a lot with what you just said, where if you are very driven, you just tend, either you are infectious, and that just sort of percolates in the rest of the team, and everyone's like super pumped and inspired to be as passionate and work those 16 hours and solve the problem that you're trying to solve and find the vision that you see. Or you have folks which just don't want to be with you in that journey. But yet, I think there is a way that you can still understand their point of view and take them along, maybe at a different pace, but still have them with you. So I think it's, what you said is spot on. And I think also is a great segue into talking about, I know, you were very honest and you were willing to make yourself vulnerable and talk about how you've tried the Heartfulness way, but you found it difficult to integrate meditation, into this very busy life that you lead. And I think, you're juggling your roles as an entrepreneur, as a very successful entrepreneur, as a mother, as a wife, and very many other roles that I think women play. And I know I might sound, like a pro-feminist here, but I think we play many more diverse roles in our lives very seamlessly than others. And I think that requires us to balance things. And I'd just like to know, and I think it's very important even for the listeners to sort of understand, how do you do that and how do you prioritize? And I mean, that can be even about meditation, or you just said you started working out, but, just making sure that you also nourish your soul, because I heard you say you run to clear up your mind, and it's also a physical activity. You also make sure you sleep well. And I think all of those are making sure we're doing well physically, which is, I think, very, very critical. And you're doing something also to make sure you're reading a lot, so you're learning, you're expanding. And what is it that you feel, and I feel like the bit that I do with meditation is just finding a way to nourish my soul, because that I feel has a sense of permanence and more long term. So just like to know more about how do you stay centered, how do you stay clear headed, and just want to hear you on that, and then we can move into questions from then on.
So I don't. I mean, I don't think I get the balance right. The running, for example, I stopped because I don't have the time. So let me start a little bit about my encounter with heartfulness, and then I'll talk about my work-life balance, or trying to. So I met a very senior figure in the Heartfulness organization called Sanjay.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to him about, I really wanted to be able to publish them on our app. I felt my app was about young people, and I was very impressed by their book, actually.
Right.
What was written. It's for even someone who's not interested in any of this, the clarity with which it's written and the depth, it's really an excellent read. So I very much want to.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And then, in fact, when I met him, he'd said, we talked about this work-life balance and being a mother and all of this stuff. And he said, look, why don't you go for 3 of those early introductory sessions? I'll introduce someone. And I loved it. I really felt excellent. I just felt those 3 sessions stilled my mind. I loved it. And then, I have to be honest, I haven't been, and this is why I'm here today, because I'm actually, I don't just work with Heartfulness in the sense that I sort of publish them, but I'm really sort of open and interested in you and the organization and the work you do. And I felt its effects in me, but I just couldn't keep it in my life. And what's happened to me is that I think motherhood has just skewed the thing. So, before, to be a wife, to be a friend, to be a daughter, to be an employee or a owner, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then the motherhood came, and, having 2 children under, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I don't see a ton of them. So let me give you an example. I wake up in the morning, and then it's baby, breakfast, school time, play school time, blah, blah, blah. And then you're rushing to go to work.
Sure.
So day of work, and then you come back, and I try and come back early. So I make it to their dinner and bath and bedtime, which is sort of between 5:30 and 8. And then after that, I am free, right? But I'm super tired.
Tired, yeah. And you're mentally exhausted and overwhelmed, right?
I know, and I just know what it is. I want to spoil myself.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but what I want is a drink.
Yeah.
I want a ton of drink. I want 1 gin and tonic, 1 Campari soda. I just want to have that, have dinner with my husband, shower, get into bed, read a book, or there'll be 3 nights a week that maybe I'll have to go out. So,
of course, that's part of the job, right? You just got to do it.
And one of the things that happened was that I stopped exercising because I couldn't find, because even, it's not just heartfulness. That moment when I should exercise, which is, let's say 8 p.m., I just didn't want to do it. And how I'm exercising now is I have a Zoom class with 2 mothers whose kids are my kids' age. And we do a 15-minute workout. So we do it every day.
Oh.
And
Nice.
we do this thing called the 7-minute workout, which is amazing. I recommend it. By the way, it's changed me. I'm suddenly much more fit. And I feel like that's the only way I can be fit, accommodated is it's 15 minutes. It's not half an hour. It's not 1 hour. It's in the middle of a day whenever I can rush into it. It's not, because I also want to be a little bit lazy. I feel like I work so hard, and that there are times when I just want to slump. And I feel like this is just a moment. I think when the kids get a bit older, I've heard that from all parents. By the time they're 5 or 6, they'll want us, but in different ways. I won't have that sort of the baby yelping and you have to change its diaper. There's a lot of basic physical work around the baby. I think I'll be ready to return to some kind of structured time for myself. But right now, I don't have it. And the big thing I've made in my life is I have a much smaller social life. So I was quite a sociable person. I'd go out quite a lot, and I do much less of it.
No, no, of course.
It's kept me, but do I balance? No, I gave up exercise. I mean, what the lockdown, the biggest thing it's given me is that I realized, gosh, I like doing a little bit of physical activity for these 15 minutes. Even if it's 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes. I'm doing those push-ups, I'm sweating. I feel like I've done something, and it's not amazing. It's not perfect. Like my husband, who's very male, just finds this approach very sloppy.
Yeah.
He wants 1 hour focused, quiet time, works in the gym. What is this in the middle of the day? 15 minutes is what? This is not. But it's all I can do. And,
Sure.
and even being able to. But see, I mean, I think, I do think, I mean, I don't know if you're a mom, but the child thing for the first, I think 3-4 years is very, very hard. And I know it gets easier, so it will.
So let me tell you, I am not a mom, and I've always been leaning towards not being one. And you being so honest and sharing your experiences certainly discouraged me. But
totally, I mean, there's so many children in the world. Really, you have to sort of want it, And my sister is all just like you; she doesn't want kids. So yes, I don't balance my life. I have lots of things I want to do. What I do is through this, the work has been uncompromised. I do the work like always, but then everything else has sort of been shrunk. So it's in work, and now it's family. It's work, family.
No, absolutely.
There isn't, and it's not like I have a ton of hobbies. I basically read, and I like cooking on occasion, and I like watching TV, but yes, that's it.
No, and I think that's, you said some very important things where you're like, you want to be lazy, you want to give yourself some time off. And I think it's absolutely worth it, and you totally deserve it when you're killing yourself every day at work for 14-16 hours. But all I would say is that, for me, even if I meditate for 10-15 minutes in a day, like you started off with working out, and you've seen the results and you've seen what it's done to you, you're just motivated to do more. And I feel like, while we say that, yes, you should at Heartfulness, start with 20 minutes or half an hour, I would still say, even if that means it's 15 minutes in the day, it has changed things for me in the way that if I took 2 hours to do something, I'm able to do it, and at work, I'm able to do it much quicker because you have that clarity in your mind, and you're like, I know that's the priority. I need to go hit that first. If I get that done, the rest of it will just fall into place. And I think that comes because I'm able to meditate and do that 15-20 minutes in the day. So
how much do you meditate in the day?
Well, I meditate in the morning, and then we do something called cleaning in the evening, which I think is a very important aspect of the whole practice. Because, Daji always says it's like, like you exercise, right? And you're sweating. And then if you go and hug someone, you're going to transfer that sweat to everyone else. And that's what we come back with work. We come back with mental impressions. No one can see that, but it comes across in our interactions with your husband or with your child. If you've had a stressful day, you tend to be very high strung or react in ways that you wouldn't. And I feel like that cleaning is a process which helps me leave all of that out, clear all of that away, and then actually be me in all of those interactions and be in that moment as opposed to carrying all of that weight that I've accumulated through the day. So it sort of gives you every day a new start, right? Once you do that, and then you meditate, which obviously is in the morning, preferably for 30 minutes, but, start with 10, start with 15, whatever works for you. But I would really urge you to do it.
And I agree. And I mean, I might just give Joshua a call and say, give me a session.
Yeah, and I think this is also for the youth who are listening, right? I think, we put ourselves into this slot where we need to do things a particular way. What I'm also hearing from you, from your experience, is that you need to hustle. And it's the same in meditation, right? If you need to hustle to get 10 minutes in, do it. And trust me, you'll want more of it. It's something which really changes you as a person. And I feel like, let me go on to, I think we have about 5 minutes. I want to ask you a couple of questions and wrap this up. So there's Shreya Sagar who says, once you got into Oxford, weren't you intimidated by some of your brilliant peers? and how did you actually learn to believe in yourself and build your self-confidence?
So, there was no question. When I went to Oxford, I realized that there were just, in every way, there were people who were far better than me. And, once you know that, it's okay. So, yes. I mean, that self-esteem doesn't actually, I think, mean, oh my God, I love myself and I'm amazing. I think, at least I don't often, I don't think of self-esteem like that. I think of self-esteem as, for me at least, is I know my place in the world. So I'm quite talented. I'm quite interesting. I'm just
Okay.
not the most talented. I'm not the most interesting. And I found that I did find that hard, Shreya. There's no question. But it was also by the end of 3 years, I had said that to myself.
Sure.
So that's it. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's acceptance, and I think that's a big part of how you deal with a lot of the issues that we deal with. Another question is from Siddharth Tiwari, who says, "What if you find yourself in an existential crisis? Is it just you're overthinking or worrying too much, or what do you do when you sort of feel lost, right?" And I think a bunch of us do.
So I'm hesitating because that is something I really. I mean, so I'll tell you that the one moment I had it was in my 20s, feeling stuck. So I don't feel lost so much as feeling like I don't feel the movement in my life. I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. I get that panic of feeling like, what if I'm stuck? What if I'm not going to go anywhere? So that when that offer from Random House India came, I took it. Like, I didn't hesitate because I knew it was my way of bringing movement back into my life, right? Once I hate to say this, but I haven't had an existential crisis. This is terrible. I have many crises to do with like, am I doing well enough? Am I doing as well as I could be? But
Sure.
I don't anymore and maybe I will have an existential crisis later in my life, and then I would be able to answer this question differently. But at the moment, who am I, or what is my purpose, or why am I here, or am I valuable and creating value? I don't have those questions. I kind of think I'm okay. I know this is terrible, but
it's great.
the work has given the combination of the work and the
Family.
Yeah, I mean, there are these roots that hold us, right? And our lives are about creating some of these pillars that give us stability in our own way. And, I think if you talk to me in my mid-30s, I definitely had a moment thinking I probably may not get married. I definitely had that feeling. And then I remember thinking, that's okay. It's okay not to get married. Like, it's fine. I won't be. I remember thinking, am I going to be devastated? And I thought, no, it won't devastate me. It's okay. But
I think what I'm hearing
I'm sorry, Siddharth, it's right, but I don't know whether I'm the right person to answer that.
No, I think what I'm hearing is you've never looked for validation from outside, right? You've just sort of figured that this is it, this is who I am, and I'll sort of live through whatever comes my way and whatever hits me up, because I am confident of who I am, and I'll get through it. So we're running out of time, Chiki. I'm gonna wrap this up, and I just want to say that firstly, thank you so much for taking the time. I also feel that even if we're able to have one young person who's listening in to sort of experiment and try the Heartfulness way to remain centered and clear-headed, and more importantly, maybe find some joy, or even think back to this conversation and that something shifted in them, then there would be so much power and meaning to the interaction that we've had. And so, I would absolutely love to have you again. And this interaction was really fulfilling for me personally. And I hope it was the same, for the listeners. And again, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, it's a wrap, folks. And I think we're going to segue into Joshua, who you are so, really enjoy. From what I hear from you in the conversation, you really enjoyed interacting with him. So he's actually next. So
Joshua's a star. You'll enjoy it. Thank you so much, Pragya.
Yes, thank you both, Pragya and Chiki. Sorry to cut you off. You can continue. Chiki, you were in the middle of saying something.
No. I'm just going to say bye.
Okay. Well, from my side, I would like to thank both of you. This was a beautifully done session. I love the back and forth between you, Chiki, and Pragya. Very well done. And I think the comments that we're getting in from our live stream, the sense I'm getting is that they loved your honesty. They loved how raw and real you were, and they are very encouraged that they're not alone in thinking these things. So thank you so much.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.